Module 2, the Organizational Ignorance Continuum. If you are a teacher, administrator, or board member, head over to multiplemetrics.org and check out all the free resources. The Organizational Ignorance Continuum, multiplemetrics.org, represents all the workshops, clinics, professional trainings, where professionals, educational professionals, stakeholders, shareholders, even board workshops, board meeting workshops, everybody comes together to try to figure out how they're going to overcome disproportionality or what they're going to do to make a difference with student achievement or graduation rates, or it could be higher order thinking and how they're going to increase higher order thinking. Especially comes to mind, a bias of mine, I guess, would be in an affluent school. They'll talk about how they could increase higher order thinking and things of this nature. And it just goes around and around in a circle because it is the organizational ignorance continuum. Many of the things that we as educators try to do just represent the veil of high expectations. High expectations and rigor are completely different. Sometimes they're the antithesis of each other in many cases. Difficulty, barriers to entry, and grade killers. And too much for this presentation, but you could go on hours and hours, assignment by assignment. One example of a barrier to entry in the bottom right-hand corner of the circle would be the social studies teacher and the math teacher do interdisciplinary learning, and they come excited, which they should be, together with the educational community, and they present that they had for Thanksgiving, the students went for math to the grocery store and they put all these things together in a budget for Thanksgiving. And on the social studies side, they did this interdisciplinary learning with social studies and math. They went and they wrote a nonfiction piece because nonfiction reading and writing is so important. And they did some higher order thinking and collaborated and put all this together. And the students that did not, they received either a 0 or a 50%. The problem is there's so many barriers to entry, from being able to get to the grocery store to culturally responsive issues, that some people don't do Thanksgiving. And so I'm not saying it's not okay to do that activity. If you want to do that activity, go ahead and do the activity. But what you can't do, what we need to stop doing, is then, from a metrics perspective on middle school and high school report cards, is to take that assignment and deal out 0% and 50%. We need to start collecting assets. Multiplemetrics.org, acceptable high expectations example. Every student in the school district will experience grade level and or above grade level curriculum facilitated through personalized instruction, where every learner is expected to achieve at high levels. That kind of high expectation is important, and we do need to have high expectations. And that is totally acceptable. Throughout the culture of the public educational system, though, we see high expectations veiled behind the organizational ignorance continuum. Too often, high expectations are actually barriers to entry or grade killers in disguise. You could have high expectations that a student dresses out for PE class And if they don't, they go to twilight or credit recovery. However, dressing up for PE class, taking off their clothes and putting on other clothes may not be very culturally responsive. If we get the students another bathroom, there's still challenges with that because dressing out for PE class has nothing to do with any core learning objective in physical education. It has nothing to do with any anchor standard in physical education. And yet we have some students that do not achieve a high school diploma over this type of ignorance. If you are watching this right now, go back to your school, whether you're a teacher, a principal, a vice principal, superintendent, a parent, and try to get your school to focus on what students can do. And when we look at high expectations, too often a teacher may have high expectations about their heading on the assignment. And we do want students to conform to a certain extent, but keep that off your report cards. If you have the evidence in your hand, but the student wrote the heading wrong, then take that evidence, celebrate it, put it in your personalized butterfly metric system, and use that evidence to show what you can do as a teacher and what the student can do. If you're a teacher listening to this, especially if you're a tenured teacher in the United States of America, you can go back in your classroom, you could do all these things. Because right now in America, there is total academic freedom, it seems, for any teacher or administrator to do whatever they want to do with measuring student achievement. And that's a big problem because they need guidance. We all need guidance when it comes to showing statistical significance for what we're claiming to measure. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time. So, yes, we do want to have high expectations, and an acceptable high expectation is on this slide here. And there are many high expectations that are actually a representation of the organizational ignorance continuum. And we need to get away from all those. For a decade, we would deal with bad high expectations or metrics misalignment. And if you want to be exhausted, try to do an asset-based system without a strong and robust system in place. In other words, leave it up to the teacher or the building level principal to change one or two things. And all of a sudden, you will have so much metrics misalignment. You will have so many fires to put out as an administrator. And teachers, administrators, they all need guidance. So bad high expectations example would be systematically uncontrollable metrics misalignment, difficulty, barriers to entry, grade killers, veiled behind high expectations, the organizational ignorance continuum of the historical public educational system. That sounds like complete chaos. And that sounds like most schools would not be in that situation. However, administrators that are responsible or disruptive leaders that are responsible for trying to get teachers and other administrators to collect evidence of what students can do and collect evidence of personalized student achievement, it drives them mad. They run around putting out fires all day long because we cannot let grade killers, barriers to entry, veil of high expectations, we cannot let those creep into the system. Because when they creep into the system, even 1 or 2 assignments worth will totally tank your metrics. Or if you're a teacher and your team teaching with somebody, and your team teaching with another teacher, and they want to add an assignment, and they want to put it into school tool or whatever your learning management system is, that one assignment can totally skew uh, and destroy your evidence collection of student achievement. Um, one grade killer, 1-0. So we have to be really careful because bad high expectations, they're not just the big, bad, scary monster. Bad high expectations are actually often implicit. They're often implicit things that creep into the system. They even come in, maybe the administrator has a group of teachers that are very strong teachers, and without guidance, those bad high expectations creep in. High expectations are good as long as they're not systematically uncontrollable metrics misalignments. Just one of those will tank your metrics for the whole marking period for no reason other than ignorance.